You seem to be one of these actresses who remarkably, I must say, belongs to the world. If you look at Kim's Twitter page, it says...
At Kim Cattrall.
At Kim Cattrall. Liverpool-born, Canadian-bred New Yorker, and I can't think of another actor-actress who lays claim to 3 different places, England, Canada, the US, and that way. Does one really feel like home?
This is a really good question, and I'm not really sure how to answer it. And I've realized that the way my life has always been, and what I'm trying to embrace at this point in my life, is that where I am is where I live. So when I'm in New York, I do feel like a New Yorker. When I'm in London, I do feel like a Brit. And when I'm in Canada, I'm a Canuck. So tonight you have all 3. Maybe I'll leave with a little Spanish.
Tell us a little bit, though, Kim, about how that came to be, that you have a purchase on these 3 places. Were your parents very migratory, or what was happening in your life?
Well, partly. I was born in Liverpool, and at a very young age, 3 months, we immigrated to Canada. And then we went back to England in the early 60s, so I spent about almost 2 years in England then. And that's when I discovered I wanted to be an actress. That was my first real exposure to theater, legitimate theater. And then I came to New York at 16 to go to theater school. I was accepted to a school, American Academy. And I graduated, and I've been sort of working ever since. But that triangle in my life has continued. Those 3 cities.
Interesting, though, that you went to Drama Academy in New York, because presumably you could have gone in England.
No one would accept me except them.
Ah, interesting.
And it was because I was so young. They'll say, well, you're very talented, but we don't take anybody younger than 18 or 21 in England. So the American Academy said if you pass the exam and you have a high school graduation, which I had, I could go to the school, which I did.
And of course, what's lovely is you've then forged a career, and I mean this as a compliment as a New Yorker based in London, which I am, that is a very English career in terms of going from television to theater to film and round. Was that always the goal, to sort of mix all 3 if you could?
No, the goal was survival.
Not a bad goal.
Yes, and I thought, well, I was trained in the theater, and I love performing live. I get such a thrill out of it. There's nothing quite like it. I love to tell stories. I love the very organic approach to working in the theater, which is this wonderful artistic adventure that you all go on with complete strangers, with this usually a better piece of writing than you will find in film, in theater, mostly classics, so that I enjoy doing because they have stood the test of time. And you come together for this period and you create this work, and then you present it to an audience, and they decide, and then you have a run of the play, and then it's over. It's sort of, I was describing to my friend Brian, who's with me, film and television is almost like having an affair, but with me, doing a theater piece is a definite relationship.
And of course, most of the audience here, I assume, knows you primarily from a certain television program, which you were in your 40s, early 40s, when you started doing it. And that is an amazing time in one's life to stake that claim on the public imagination, especially now at a time when it's just happening to 18, 19-year-olds, and you wonder, do they have anything left to look forward to?
That's so sad.
But, yeah. So let's rewind the historical tape to the inception of Sex and the City and you. I've read, it's been said several times, that you turned it down initially.
I turned it down 3 times.
Why?
Well, I had just turned 41, and I just didn't feel that I was up to it. I didn't think I could pull the sexy gal part anymore. I felt, you know, that's kind of, and that was in 1997. And that doesn't seem like a terribly long time ago, not to me. But we felt differently about age then. And I think that shows like Sex and the City were very instrumental in opening people's mind to what could be a sexy, desirable woman. When my mom was 40 and her generation, it was definitely over. So I had to really re-examine how I felt about myself and aging, not just how I felt about it in other people. And after the 3rd time they asked me, Darren Starr's boyfriend, who was a casting director in New York and a dear friend of mine, he called me and he said, "Why did you turn it down again?" And he said, "You're scared." I said, "I'm not scared. I'm terrified." And he said, "This is your role, and you're wrong, and take a deep breath and have some faith." And I met with Darren Star again, and I said, "Look, I just don't want to become the older woman here, talking from the mount and doing all this." He said, "Absolutely not." And that's exactly what I did, and I never had more fun in my life. I was the know-it-all. It was great.
It must be fascinating, and you did this for many years, and then you did, of course, reprise the role for 2 movies, to then put that character to one side, because you've lived with that character much longer than you could ever live with any of the movies we're going to talk about, or a play that you've done at the Old Vic this past summer, which is now history.
Yes.
This woman walked with you and in you for over a decade. Is it hard then to put that to one side?
Not for me, because, I consider it my work. And I know when they say cut, I know who Kim is. I don't lose myself in Samantha. I know that when Samantha's going through chemo, Kim isn't going through chemo. I can imagine what it is, and I can do research, but I'm not Samantha. So for me, that's always been very clear, and I put that down to my theater background of when the curtain goes down, you go home, you let it go, and you need to walk away. You need, what happens with especially a television series, which I really noticed, was that perception doesn't stop for anybody else, though. It's a bitch when you're dating, believe me. It's really fascinating. It's the truth. But professionally, it's very clear. But when I can tell when people meet me for the first time that images are going through their head. They're not really listening to anything that's going on. And there's this kind of stare, and I want to say, which episode is it? Just tell me what it is. But I take that as a great, great compliment, because this show just won't go away, and in people's imaginations, and it lives on now in DVDs for the end of time.
But we're told, of course, that Hollywood has a collectively limited imagination. So did you find...
We're told?
Yeah. You can bear that out from your experience, but did you find that initially, at least, you were being offered infinitely many variations on Samantha Jones, and you just wanted to say no?
Not even variations. It was Samantha Jones.
By another name.
Yes. Yes. Ugly Betty, I was offered to play her boss. I said, it's Samantha. And I thought, it sounds like a really great show, and America's wonderful and talented, but I just thought, I feel that I've done that. I can't do that any better. I couldn't have even approached it any better. So I thought that's when I went home to the theater.
And for those of us who immerse ourselves in the theater, like me, it's been lovely having Kim come home to the theater, because you've done actually 6 productions, 5 plays, because one of them was the same play in 2 different productions, in the UK in the last decade. And of course, you couldn't have had a greater contrast than the first play you did on the West End from Samantha Jones, in which you played a quadriplegic, immobile, well, basically physically immobile.
I do like a challenge.
And the theater must have been in every way restorative. But did you feel, going back to the theater, Kim, that people thought, well, what's this about? She's a television star. Or were they ready to go there with you?
Well, when you have someone like Sir Peter Hall emailing you and saying, when are you coming back? It's a really great incentive, because you know you're in terrific hands. And I didn't feel like I had anything to prove, except to prove maybe something to myself. And maybe what that was is that I still loved it and I still needed to do it. And that's exactly what I found out.
Do you feel now, going forward, the theater can always be a place for you to go back to?
It's where it began. I saw a play at the RSC with Janet Sussman, and it was one of those moments that I've heard people like Joni Mitchell talk about, or Lou Reed, or Patti Smith, where you sit there, who are my heroes, and you just sit there and you watch somebody doing it, and something inside of you says, I must do that too. I feel an affinity to that, for that, need that. And it's not the same on a sound stage. It's thrilling, but it's not the same, because everything is happening in real time. And we're always saying, oh, live in the moment. How do you do that? But in theater, you must live in the moment. If you don't, you're screwed.